Wait on, I'll get back to where I'm supposed to be. There we are. Well, very cool. Hey, welcome everyone. And I'll spotlight you too, Oscar, so that spotlight for everyone. There we go. And very cool. There's a couple of people in the waiting room, so we'll just let them in. Actually, shall I spotlight you, Oscar? What am I doing here?
I think you did.
Okay.
I think you did, Matt.
Yeah, he's pinned to the screen.
Yeah, I can see you, Oscar.
Okay.
Front and center.
I don't know what's happened there. I've completely stuffed this up, I think. I just had to...
I think it's fine. I think you're okay, Matt.
Oh, okay. No, I was trying to hook it onto Facebook as well. So
It's on. It's on.
It's on.
It's
Awesome.
live.
all right. Hey, cool.
seeing
Yeah,
everything.
so welcome everyone. Hey, thanks Oscar for staying up super late. Mind you, this is kind of like the Portuguese time of day, right? This is when you guys are at your best, isn't it?
Always, yeah.
Okay, well, very cool. Well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Matt Parish, and then for those of you, and I wouldn't understand why you wouldn't know Oscar, but this is Oscar Quevedo, and we're really proud to have just launched our first wine together, which has been many years in the dreaming, in the making, and in the launching. And we've talked a little bit about it before, but now it's in the bottle. You can actually try it, so you can give us your feedback. I wanted to try and get into a sort of a room view so that I can see how many people have got it in their glass, and I need to get it in my glass. But hey, Oscar, so why don't we talk a bit about kind of where this came from? You know, like how this happened. I think it was one of two trips that I made to Portugal. I don't think I've actually seen you in California, or you've tried to.
We met once.
We met once in California, yeah. So the first time I went to Portugal, I met up with Oscar, and we went to the Port Society. What was it called, Oscar? You've got the right name for it.
The Port Wine Confraria, the Brotherhood.
Right, and this is quite.
Do Porto.
Yeah, it's quite an event. I mean, they've got like horses and carriages, and then all of the members, and there must be several hundred of them, all wear this regalia, which is like a long robe. And I had to wear black tie, and so did, which was pretty funny because I sent my measurements to Portugal because I didn't want to take, I don't have a tux, so I didn't want to take a tux with me. And I got there, and of course it was all wrong. But so I kind of looked like I was in a robe as well. But and then
you had a great boots at the time, so your shoes didn't really fit. So you were going like your cowboy boots were.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
so one of the highlights of the night.
That was. So we did that, and then the big time and so obviously we met up there and we started to get to know each other, and we talked a lot about wine. Obviously we were at a port event because it was in Porto, and but we started talking, and I visited your family's vineyards, your vineyards and winery for the first time, and we'll talk a bit more about where that is. But then I think the second time, you know, I met up with another winemaking friend of yours, spent a lot of time tasting wines from all around the place. And then we went to a festival where you basically hit each other on the head with hammers. What was that one, Oscar?
San João.
Yeah, that was pretty hilarious. For someone who didn't know what was going on, it was bizarre.
It was the St. John. It's on the night of the 23rd of June to 24th, which is the day of the city of Porto. It's a great event.
Yeah, so the whole town of Porto, and if you haven't been there, you know, obviously it's an old European city, and it's built around the Douro River, and all the buildings kind of terrace up off the river, and so every house has got a little balcony, and then so you've got all these people partying on the balconies, and then you've got people in the streets partying, and there's big sort of music festival. and then everyone's got like a little plastic hammer, and everyone's walking around belting each other. And the kids particularly loved it. Of course, it was like one time in their life they can start beating adults, and yeah, it was a really cool festival, event. So so that was number 2.
That was number 2.
Yeah, and then I think it's always 3 times lucky. I think I went back there after that, and I said, right, Oscar, we have to do something. And I think I had dinner with your family, and then I went up and visited.
We visit different vineyards up and
Yep.
down the river. We went to discover what's our local terroir, different soils that we have in the Douro, different varieties, which is something in which the Douro and Portugal are very, very rich. And when things start to get really complex, and eventually we just realized that we had enough juice to produce something special.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, but why don't you give us a bit more of a flavour for, the little town, or for Porto and the town, a little bit of history, a little bit of how your family came to be such an important part of it, and all the rest, Oscar.
Yeah, sure. So we are based. The winery is located in what's the geographic center of the Douro Valley. The Douro is a wine region that was first demarcated and regulated back in 1756. It's the home for port. So all port is produced in the Douro and historically shipped from the city of Porto. So for 5 generations now, my sister Claudia and me, we are the 5th generation. We have been growing grapes and making port that we sell to different parts of the world. Historically, the region was producing more port than wine, but during the course of these last few decades, people got really interested not only in the port, but also in the still wines. The still wines are coming from the same vineyards where we produce port, but the difference is that while for port, there is a fortification, there is an addition of wine spirit to preserve part of it, of the sweetness of the grapes. For the still wines, we do a full fermentation of the must, like we do anywhere else. In terms of our family, we are, in its origin, we are grape growers. So we have over 100 hectares, so about 200 acres of vineyards, and it's in this diversity of locations that we got, in which we have 5 different properties, that we are able to produce special wines. And is how we really feel ourselves comfortable, because we have enough quality in our own vineyards to produce different wines with a lot of character. And when you came and we start unfolding the different possibilities, things get really interesting, and we learned a lot through this process, with this project of working with you, getting your different approach of a Kiwi winemaker, producing wines in the US for several years. So kind of your new world experience with using old world grapes. And
you're too kind. You're too kind, Oscar. You're too kind. I think we've both learned a lot. I think the most interesting thing about Portugal is that there's just so many great varieties that I don't know. I don't even think a lot of the Portuguese winemakers know them all. It's a huge learning experience. So
definitely likewise. And so when we have this chance of having the angels supporting our project, was just amazing for us, because it's kind of a dream that we can finally put in the bottle.
Absolutely. And so near the winery, there's a little town, and but you're right up in the hills. I mean, just to give people a sense of it, you know, when I first went there, it's just amazing. And you can check out on Facebook for, you know, myself or Oscar. There's plenty of photos and pictures, and even a video of Oscar and I cruising down in a car. I think I was driving, or you were driving, or maybe maybe you were driving when I was doing the video. That was probably safer. But but yeah, and it was.
I was driving, you were recording. Yeah.
Right. And Oscar's, just so you know, Oscar's granddad had taught him not to use the brake very much. He only uses gears, you know. So, and then he uses neutral quite a bit too to save gas. I don't know what you know, it's 5 generations, but they've been pretty tight with the cash, right, to get through. So he puts it in neutral on the freeway quite a bit. But anyway. But we looked, I think, so when we were scoping this project out, we knew that we wanted to make a red wine. I'd love to do a white wine, because I actually think that is the real undiscovered gem of you know, the Douro. But we looked at,
that's the ultimate challenge.
vineyards.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think 5 vineyards, and we set them all up, and we looked at like the last couple of vintages of wines made from that. And then we said, okay, so we're really trying to focus in on, okay, what is the style that we're trying to make? And we wanted it to be sort of rich and lush and obviously representative of, you know, the Douro. But also, I was really keen. I heard the word Mistura in one of my visits. I think it was you said to me, oh, yeah, Mistura, that means field. But I said, oh, you've got to name something Mistura. And so I wanted it to be a field blend. And so, you know, we tasted these wines and we sort of slowly dialed into probably 2 main vineyards, but one in particular we wanted to launch the wine with, which was, or you say it, Oscar. Agudinho. I can actually say that.
I have a photo of it if you want to see it. Do you want to see a photo of it?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Let me show you a photo of it. Can you give me like
presenter rights or something?
Yeah.
Right on.
On the road and sped off 90 degrees away, and the guys tried to follow her, and then she swerved in front of a big truck. And
I think we got someone else coming. We're going to mute someone. So how do I do? Make you.
I did it.
Oh, you did it?
I did it. I muted.
Oh, okay. So we just need to make Oliver. Let me see.
So to give you an idea of our village, it is one of the oldest villages in Portugal. Portugal was founded in 1143, Portugal itself, and our little village actually got the right to be founded even from before. So at that time, Spain didn't exist and Portugal didn't exist. So it was like smaller kingdoms that we were part of. So it's a really old village. It's still relatively small. There's only 2,000 people living in here, as we are up in the mountains. I grew up in this little village, but it's home. It's what I call home. So what you see here, it is my family. So mom and dad and my sister. And this is the view of one of the places in the Douro. Douro is the name of the river. The river starts in Spain. In Spain, they call it Duero, and it runs west towards the Atlantic Ocean and the city of Porto. And it has like this big canyon what it that the river snakes around. So there is a huge difference between the grapes that we produce at lower altitude, closer to the river level, or up in the hill. To give you an idea of height, so we are at about 300, 400 feet at river level, and on the top of the hill we are over 2,000. So it's really dramatic, the difference. This is the view of the vineyard that we have in front of the winery. This is one of the highest altitudes that we have. Wines from here tend to be very fresh with high acidity and a little bit lighter. And we were looking for something more traditional, more dramatic, where the temperature would have more impact in the final result, in the quality of the grapes, and in the end in the quality of the wine. And we decided to go to this vineyard.
Look at it. That's amazing. Yeah.
And as you can see, it's all planted on terraces when it gets really steep. And those terraces of 2 lines can be like, they are mechanized. So we have a tractor that can go in between these 2 lines. But what's amazing in this, how the ancestors built up these places, were that they decided to plant the different vines together. So this is a big field blend, as you Matt were saying before. This is a mistura, a mix of different varieties all together, and this is quite unique, especially nowadays that the winemaker wants to control every single part of the process, having all these grapes together, in which we don't really know the final percentage that we are using. We know what we have planted of different varieties, but we don't know how much, what's the yield of each single vine. But this is the essence of the Douro wine making. It's to have all these mix of grapes, names that you are not really able to pronounce. They are easy to forget, but using those best grapes that we believe are more suitable to our climate and our soil.
And just so everyone can understand, what are the 3 main ones off this vineyard?
The three. One of those is Touriga Nacional.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is Touriga Franca. We produce also grapes of Tempranillo, which in Portugal, in the north of Portugal, we call Tinta Roriz. In this specific vineyard, we have also a Tinto Cão, which the literal translation would be red dog. A little bit of Tinta Barroca, Sousão, Tinta Francisca, Tinta da Barca. So there are multiple names. Tinta basically means red, but it's the Douro. You can easily find over 40 different varieties in this vineyard.
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, you can see why I wanted to spend some time there. It's very impressive in a photo, but also it's even more impressive in person. So this is where most of the grapes that we use for our project are coming from. And then I will show you 2 other vineyards that we owned at a little bit higher altitude, which help us to refresh a little bit the grape juice and our wine in the end. Yeah, just so people know, just one comment. So for every 100 meters you go up, and I know that that's kind of in the metric system, but for every 100 meters you go up, you basically lose a degree of Celsius during the growing season, in terms of temperature. So it has a big effect. So Diagodino pretty much starts down near the river, right, and then comes up. Yeah, exactly. And then we have this vineyard, which is Trovisca, which is located like in the middle of the hill. So it has a little bit later cycle, about 2 to 3 weeks. It means that the grapes, we can easily finish Agodinho, the whole picking, and then start using start picking these grapes here up in Trovisca. And another location that we also have is Valleira.
Valletta actually takes the name from the canyon that exists at the lower part of this hill. It's a place where very historic, well, a very famous person, Scottish, died, passed away in about 1860s, in the 1860s, and this is another location that we have planted on terraces as well because of its slope. So Mistura has this concept of aggregating different varieties, but also varieties that are planted in different locations. And in the end, this is also a mistura of winemakers, as we have two different people involved. So Matt, when you came up with a name, there could be no better, word to describe this project.
Apart from the Portuguese word crazy. But yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I mean, the interesting thing is that, for me, I've sort of been brought up in the modern winemaking era, and the modern winemaking era is very much about, single plantings, so the whole vineyard or the whole block is to one variety. And so this is sort of going completely in the opposite direction. There's nothing actually, to me, more exciting at the moment because, the thing is, when you pick a vineyard that is all one variety and it's all on sort of one level, it's flat and square, it grows pretty uniformly. It matures uniformly, and when you pick it, you pretty much know what you're getting. Here, it's a bit more of a roll of the dice, and you're trying to find the sort of, call it the midpoint, where there might be some things that are a little bit too ripe and then some things that are just not quite right, but most of it is perfectly right. And but I think that's what gives you the sort of the complexity. I think it gives you that sort of characteristic of a particular vineyard in a particular area. So I think it's exciting, and I think we must have done something right in sort of locating or sort of sourcing primarily out of the Diagodinho vineyard, which is a little bit lower, because I've had really good comments about the sort of the richness, the darkness, and we wanted to make something that was sort of rich and lush, and it still had some of those, slightly rustic Portuguese sort of tannins and so forth, but at the same time, sort of, it finished relatively smoothly. So yeah.
We wanted to have this the character also of the landscape, which is it's definitely a bit rough, but then with the terraces everything gets smoother. So
and what about the rock, the rocky soils? I don't know if you've got a picture of that.
Let me see.
Yeah,
give me a second.
And we had a discussion whether we call this schist or not, but
it is the correct word, if I'm not wrong, is slate. The schist is a harder soil that a harder rock that takes several more million of years to develop, and also higher pressure.
Right.
The slate is a little bit more easier to unfold. Like if it was like a book, you can almost see the different levels of pressure on it, and it's a younger rock.
Yeah, you can see where it cleaves. Yeah.
Yeah, we have both in the. Yeah.
I'm very sorry. I have a question. When you're working with that kind of slate, doesn't the grape get to struggle a little bit more, and it brings a little more density, richness? I'm an amateur, but I find that the wines that I like are the ones that have struggled a little bit. You're talking about slate and the ground, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right on. I mean, just like people that have struggled a little bit tend to be a bit richer in character, right? So, but yeah, I mean, what's your comment on that one, Oscar?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we still have bigger rocks in our vineyard that we believe are important to give this hard time to the rock. This vineyard is not irrigated, in Portugal, we have about, you have to help me with the inches, Matt, but about in this location, we have about 300 millimeters of rain a year.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it. It's very little, but it's
I
not
was
a
just
lot.
going to say.
Yeah.
It is very little. So the vine is really struggling. It has to quickly develop a root system that goes down to get humidity, moisture down in the soil, so it can handle the heat that we have during the summer.
So 30 centimeters is about 10.5 inches.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep. Yeah, I was just looking it up myself. It's about 10 to 12 inches or something like that. So not a lot of rain. And also it depends on what time of year that rain comes as well, you know, in terms of the growing season. But I think the thing is that it's important to get the vines well established. I mean, it's good for them to struggle a little bit, but when they struggle too much, like particularly in a drought year, that's where you really do have some impact. So you don't get the same sort of flavor development. The tannins can seem harder and not as supple, and so therefore it's not as easy to drink or takes more management. So it's all about balance. And I think you've had a very nice year this year, right? You've had a good rainfall this year, Oscar.
We did. We need that rain to come during the winter, so to build up some water reserves in the soil. But it also helps when you have few showers right before the harvest. Like right before, I mean, a month before, maybe even 2 weeks is fine. And we had it. So we were very comfortable with the grapes that were arriving to the winery. It's also interesting to see that let me just get some water because my throat is getting dry. Just a second.
Yep, no problems. And also, if people have got questions, I saw there's one question on Douro Whites, and I'll get Oscar to respond to that because he can pronounce the names, but there's a whole range of them. While Oscar's getting some water too, I'll try and take him off the. I'm trying to take him off the screen here. Do you want to turn off your presentation mode for a second, Oscar? Yeah.
So I was sorry. I was saying that if we have a very low level of rainfall, the vine is also going to produce less grapes in the future because it knows that you do not have enough water to be able to handle the whole ripeness till the end. To give you an idea of yields, we have about 3.5 tons per hectare. So this is in terms of vines. We get about 1 kilogram of vines per, or 1 kilogram of grapes per vine.
And we would probably get at least twice that over here. Yeah.
So the vine is going to produce concentrated grapes with a lot of flavor, and we just have to be able to, in the end, use that quality to produce like rich, lush wines. Did you see that photo that I showed before?
Yep. Yeah, I pulled it down, but it was up for a while.
Yeah, it was the sky view of the vineyard, so you can see all the terraces.
Oh, maybe we missed that one. We saw the rock.
No,
Yeah.
sorry. Let me show. Did you see this one?
Oh no.
So this is the same vineyard. This is Agudinho.
Wow.
And this is the view from like, I don't know, a few hundred meters above, just looking down.
That's amazing.
Hey, Oscar, before I forget, there was one person that was asking about the white varietals. Like, man, I was going to have a crack at pronouncing them, but I think your Portuguese is better than mine. So can you tell us a few of the white varietals, or, you know, maybe the key white varietals out of the Douro?
Like the top three would be Rabigato.
Okay, that's exactly why I didn't
Vinhozinho,
pronounce it. Yep.
and Gouveio.
Gouveio, yep. Gouveio.
And then another one that is used all over Portugal is Arinto.
Yeah. And you see Arinto throughout Portugal. And so there'll be a quiz after this, of course. So if you didn't remember those, you're going to be looking a little bit awkward later on, but I'm sure everyone got that. Hey, let's see if there's, we'll just stop for a minute just to see if there's any other questions that have come in. And feel free to unmute if you want to ask a question. There's no problems. And then maybe we'll hook a little bit into how he made the wine. So we've looked at the vineyard. We'll talk about how he made it. And I'm just trying to, there's 23 messages I've got to read quickly. There's too much in this bottle for me to take a quiz later. Thanks, Chip. I don't know if that's an excuse. There's one question around egg allergy. We do use egg whites in finding this, and the reason that we did do that is that egg whites are a very traditional sort of method of finding wines at the end. So the egg whites help to pull out some of the harder tannins or the more astringent tannins and soften the wine. And we're talking about a relatively big wine here, so we did use a bit of egg white in a very traditional manner. As to how much is left in the wine in terms of residual, I would say it's very low, but I haven't measured it. But there is egg white in the wine, and I'm just trying to quick through. Yeah, that's it. But has anyone else got questions, or we're happy to answer any right now before we head into.
What's the bricks at harvest?
What's the bricks at harvest?
I use Beaumet, so I'm not very comfortable answering in bricks.
I can translate it for you, but yeah.
So it's about 14.5 Beaumet, or potential alcohol in the end, which is probably 26 bricks, no, Matt?
Yeah. So basically, a lot of countries either use bricks or Beaumet as a unit of measure of the sugar concentration in the grape berry. Beaumet is actually really easy, so it's used in Australia, Portugal, and a couple of other European countries. And Beaumet, if someone says it's going to be 12 Beaumet, it typically ends up around 12% alcohol, and it's a nice measure to use. Bricks has got a multiple in it, and so 12 Beaumet would probably be something like 24 bricks, 20, around that. And so it just depends where you're making wine, but yeah, you're picking it around. This is talking potential alcohol. You're picking it around 14 to 14 and a half. If we can go a touch higher, we're not worried about it because it's a big wine and it can handle a little bit more alcohol. Yeah. You see any other questions there, Oscar? You're better than I am.
Yes. So Patricia, how far are we from Lisbon? It's about 4 hour. It's a 4-hour drive. I think it's about 250 miles. If you are flying in, you may be able to fly to Porto, which is only 2 hours away. So it's another option in terms of airport, which is closer by.
Oscar, I have 2 questions. One, how far are you from Pinhão?
We are 30 minutes away from Pinhão. Maybe like if you could go straight, it would be probably like 5 miles.
Okay. And what grapes are in your altitude white wine?
Wow, that's a good question as well. So in the altitude white, we have Vinhozinho, Gouveia, Rabigato, and I think we also have a little bit of Códega in 2020 altitude. So last vintage.
Okay. Thank you.
We don't really have a formula for anything that we produce. We prefer to at the time of the harvest decide what's going to go inside of our blend based on the quality of the different varieties that are performing in a certain year. So we avoid the formula of like Coca-Cola. We just believe that we should assess the wine at different stages and then come up with a final blend which produces what I think it's the best quality.
I agree with you and Matt that white Douro wine is undiscovered and the next thing to be discovered. And I really enjoy your altitude very much.
Thank you so
Very
much.
cool. Yeah, we're very keen to do a white. We've only just released the red, and we've maybe it's the cart before the horse, but
yeah,
we'll get there.
Oscar,
Very
do
cool.
you also produce ports?
We do. We historically start producing. We started as a port producer about 100 years ago. We have 3 ports with naked. Well, it happens that they sell out quickly. We are sending a new batch of the 3 different ports that we have with naked soon. We are bottling a reserve white, which is a 80-year-old white port, a late bottle vintage, which is about 5 to 6 years old port, aged in the bottle, so more on the ruby style, and a 10-year-old tawny, aged in port cask.
Can't wait to see those.
Yeah, we like tasting out of cask at the winery. That's good.
And we can find them at Naked?
Yes, they'll be back in stock probably in September.
Well,
Hey,
cheers to both of you.
Oh, thank
Enjoy
you.
your individual wines and this one you've done together.
Well,
Thank you so much.
hey, Oscar, there's a couple of people that are asking us to taste through the wine, which is no surprise, because that's what the whole idea was. Is it's nice to talk about it, but and for transparency, I shipped Oscar some wine, but it hasn't quite arrived. But Oscar is also going to talk about the next vintage. But in terms of the wine, so the first thing that you should notice about it is it definitely has a very dark, deep color to it. We wanted that. I mean, I've always been of the opinion that you start drinking with your eyes, and we wanted something to be sort of rich and robust, and we certainly got it with this. On the nose, I think what you're seeing, and there was a question too, Oscar, because there's so many different varieties and altitudes and all the rest of it, are we going to see this wine changing a lot over the years? But I think one answer to that is, I think that what I can see on the nose is definitely sort of dark brambly fruit. I definitely think you can kind of see a range of maturity. You sort of see some fresher characters, and then you see some sort of riper characters, and all of those things kind of give it a lift. But I can definitely see dark berry fruit. We used a bit of we used oak. We both went into oak tank with staves to keep it fresh, and we used oak barrels, both of which, and we were trying to get some more of those sort of toasty mocha kind of characters. I think you can see that starting to come through on the nose. And then on the palate, we definitely wanted it to have some weight. We wanted it to match the palate. That's always been one of my things. And yeah, to me, it's got a really sort of creamy, dark red fruit. It's almost going a little bit dessert-like in terms of the intensity and the richness. It's not sugar sweet. It's just fruit sweet. Like, there's just a lot of sweet fruit. It's just lush and juicy and all the rest of it. And because of the sort of the sourcing and how we're planning out, we hope to keep the wine very similar from year to year. I mean, obviously each vintage is going to express slightly differently, but in answer to that person who's going, oh, is because of the sourcing, is it going to be different, or because of the number of different varietals? Now, our intent is really we'll show the vintage, but we're trying to keep some consistency so that people can go back and they can depend on the Douro Mistura, so. Have you any other comments around the wine?
Hey, Matt, just curious to you and Oscar, and the wine is amazing, as all your wines
Cheers.
are. Cheers, good to see you, buddy. What would you say the age profile is for this wine? When do you think it'll hit its peak?
Yeah, I'd love to see the wine probably. Oh, someone else jumped in, but yeah, I think it's still pretty young. I mean, basically, it's been in bottle for three and a bit months now. I'd love to see it after a year. I think the drinking window for this is really, call it 1 to 4, maybe outside to 5, you know, but as this is the first wine, I mean, there's a lot of wines off Oscar's vineyards that have aged for a lot longer. But in terms of how we made it, trying to make it fruit forward and try and make it really pleasurable, you know, I'd love to see this age a lot longer. But we really made it to be in a sort of a 1 to 4 year drinking window, maybe 1 to 3 even. So, you know, I think it's probably just looking a little bit young at the moment. I think when it sits in bottle, it's going to sort of fill out a bit more. It's going to integrate a bit more. So, in answer to your question, yeah, I'd say ideally start drinking between 1 and 3, 1 and 4.
It also depends on what you're expecting from the wine, Don. If you want to have this fresher character, where the fruit flavors, the primary notes are predominant, yeah, drink it younger. If you want to have more velvety, with more of the tertiary notes, with you know, with this elegance of the oak coming through, I'm totally comfortable, and I would wait like 5 or 10 years. I know based on the wines that we have been producing that they age very well and evolve really well. Of course, you end up with a different wine from what you have at the beginning, but still very enjoyable.
Yeah, and I like the more this opens up, just sitting here, like now I'm getting a whole lot of sort of really dark licoricey sort of characters, you know. I mean, in terms of what would you eat in Portugal, what would you eat? What would you eat with this? You know, in terms of what would you pair with this wine?
I mean, I will tell you what's the local town's dish, which is goat kid, roasted goat kid.
Right.
Yeah, so that's I mean, if you come to visit us, that's what I'm gonna take you.
I can tell you, Matt, Tess and I had it with a couple hours ago. We opened the bottle, had it with a little strip loin of venison. Perfect.
All right. So those sort of gamier meats and can work really well.
Yep.
Excellent.
And for the 2020, we are also going in the same direction of the 2019 that you have now in the glass. We may get a little bit more of the spicy character, as the harvest was a little bit hot, so we may get this more of a touch of the pepperish notes. But we balance a little bit with grapes at higher altitude to give some freshness. So in the end, the percentage of the grapes are going to be different that we have in this mistura, but the style is going to be the same. And we are going to make the best that we can do with the grapes that we had being like produced in that year.
Yeah. So I tasted the new vintage. Obviously, it's been a bit of a struggle to get out to see Oscar and eat goat and do all those other things. But yeah, I think everyone's going to be delighted, and we're delighted, and we just want to say thanks very much for the huge reception this wine's got. I mean, it's probably been the most successful launch I've had on Naked Wines. I think it's rating at like 98% right now, which is unbelievable. So. That's not thanks to Oscar and I, you know, it's thanks to you guys for, well, it is thanks to us in part, but mostly thanks to you guys for helping make it happen. So it's very exciting. So we're expecting a lot of orders. In fact, I think my phone's ringing now, Oscar, another, you know. But anyway, so I'll just have a look at the other question. And one thing, I've said this before, I've showed this before, but this label design, I don't know if I'm going to take you off spotlight so I can actually see what's happening here. Right on. And where's Oscar? There's lots of people on that. There he is. I'm going to take you off spotlight. Spotlight for everyone. I don't know how to do that. Anyway, you're going to have to stay. Okay. You're going to be remain spotlight. Sorry. But anyway, I can see my screen now. But the label's super cool as well. And I think if you've got a bottle, you'll see it because. And the label is basically, I've got a bottle here. But I wanted to do obviously something sort of, you know, Oscar and I wanted to do something that was very traditional sort of Portuguese, but in a modern way because it's a modern wine, right? And so the label designer, Haley, who's brilliant, she took it away, and I said tiles, and we sent her a whole bunch of pictures from Portugal and yada, yada, yada. Anyway, you know, the icon, the sort of emblem that sits at the top, well, she basically made that into the tiles. And yeah, I think it works really well. And because it's silver and gold, just like, you know, the U2 song, it rocks, you know. So, you know, so it came together really well. And, you know, not that, you know, I remember Ryan Gormley early on was always, it's about what's in the bottle. It's not what the bottle looks like or the packaging. But as I said, I think you always start drinking with your eyes, you know, and if it looks good, you're gonna probably enjoy it a lot more. But anyway, so I just wanted to mention that, Oscar. So that's definitely not changing.
No, that was a great
That
work.
was-
I mean, you were more involved than me in the label design, probably because you had this your own view also of Portugal that you'd like to see reflected on the label, and I was very happy with the direction that we were taking.
Yeah. It was like all label designs. It was starting to look a little bit weird at times, but we finally got it there. But yeah, Haley, who was the label designer, did a killer job. So, and I'll just check again. But does anyone else have any particular more questions about the sort of the wine itself? And we can talk quickly about how we made it. Or one thing that people are always interested in is about you crazy Portuguese with your you know, dancing on the grapes. What's the story there? What's the background? You know, can you give us some insight?
So the dancing floor is called lagar. So historically, well, before the existence of the stainless steel tanks and all that, so the Douro people were treading the grapes in open tanks made out of granite rock. So we would throw the grapes into these open tanks, and people, after picking the grapes and after dinner, they would jump into the lagar and start, you know, treading the grapes and crushing the berries. This would take about 4 hours for the first time when we do what we call the cut. And at the end of the 4 hours, you would have the skin already separate from the liquid, which was the idea. And because our barefoot is relatively soft, we were not really breaking the seed, which has the bitter character and can really give some harsh notes to the wine. Next day, we would do the same, but for a shorter period of time, about 2 hours, just to make sure that you keep the skins of the grapes covered with the juice, and we would keep mixing up the must, which by that time would already be fermenting. So we use
you do a dance, Oscar. There's a whole thing, you know, like
this is that's the last hour of this. when you get already on the second bottle of port, you know, that's when you start dancing and even fighting in the lagar to see who's gonna be the first to fall. But that's still it still exists, and it's a great way of understanding what fermentation is and the direction that the wine takes in the grapes and the juice takes in the end when you are making the wine. This was historically done for port. You can definitely do it for wine. You have to be more careful, as you're gonna leave your must, your wine for a longer period of time exposed to oxygen, as there is no, I mean, it's an open top. So it's important to control the amount of the movement of air that you have in that room, because you don't want that much to avoid oxidizing.
People dying. Yeah. I was thinking of people too, Oscar. But
people dying, no, and that's fine. And as long as no, you have as long as you have a bit of air and oxygen, then it's fine. It's only 4 hours, you know, Matt. You don't need that much oxygen for 4 hours.
And so with the making of this wine, so we harvested the grapes by hand, brought them into the winery. And then we actually used everything was going through stainless steel until it went to barrel, but we used a modern approach to the lagar. Do you want to talk about that at all? So the traditional approach in the lagar is basically stomping and dancing and carrying on with your feet, but we tried to reproduce that in a modern way.
Which is by having the same open tank for the fermentation, but instead of having people threading the grapes and pushing the berries and the skins down, we do that automatically with a robotic system. So in the end, we are going to achieve very similar results, but we are able to do this at the right time that we think it should be done. Instead of waiting for the people to come back from the picking and wait for the night to arrive, we can do it at different times of the day, even at night if you want. And at the same time, we can control the temperature of the must. So the granite lagars, the granite like fermentation tanks, did not have any cooling system, while in our modern lagars we do have that possibility of circulating cold water around the lagar to help control the temperature if we think it's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, what people have got to understand, and you can see it in the glass. I mean, you know, this is a powerful wine, right? It's a rich, dark wine, and it can extract, you know, very easily. And that's why the system like a lagar, where you're gently doing it with your feet, or not so gently in some people's cases, but yeah, all the systems are about gently managing it. One thing that we did purposely for this wine is that we did a lot of the fermentation management early in the process. So when there wasn't a lot of alcohol present, because alcohol is a really strong solvent. So if you're really humbling the grapes and extracting a lot, particularly when there's a lot of alcohol around, that's when you're going to really come with a wine that's probably too coarse and astringent for what we wanted to do, which is to make a really approachable a wine. So that was kind of the biggest change. And then from there, we pressed it off. And then we, as I said before earlier, that half of the wine went into larger oak barrels. So I think they were 500 litre.
500,
is that right?
500 liters.
Yeah, and then half of the wine went into stainless steel with oak staves in it, just a very light amount, just to basically influence them. But the reason we did that was we wanted to keep sort of the freshness of the stainless steel. That gives you a bit more of a modern feel. And then the traditional, you know, oak, you know, maturation gives you a bit more of the old world character. And so, you know, that's where I think you've got the complexity from the vineyard, you know, whether it's the slate and the minerality, or it's the, you know, the different the different varieties giving you different flavors and ripeness levels and all the rest of it. Then we did the same sort of complexity in the winery with, you know, the way that we made the wine and stored the wine. And then bottling was very simple. It was, as I said, a light egg white fining. There were lots of samples going back and forth because we were right in the middle of the beautiful pandemic. And so we finalized everything by, you know, Zoom and by tasting together. And that's it. That's the wrap. But yeah, we're delighted. So cheers. Cheers, everyone.
You have a couple of questions about cheese and dessert pairings and what kind of oak.
I'll handle the oak. You can do the cheese because I think it should be Portuguese cheese, you know. But the oak was it's French oak. What we ordered. The Cooper, from memory, was Nadalier. I think we did a couple, but Nadalier was one. And so, yeah, those, you know, obviously, well, the reason we used 500 litre is that we wanted to have that sort of old world barrel influence, but we didn't want to have an oak, but we didn't want to have oak dominance. So that was kind of it. But as to cheese, I'll hand it back to you, Oscar. What cheese do you recommend?
I love soft cheeses, and we have a style of cheese that is from Serra da Estrela in Portugal, which is a sheep cheese, and it has a bit of spiciness in it. It's intense, but it has some spice in it, and I mean, that would be the cheese I would pick if you were here in Portugal to taste it with me. Being in US, and I know that you have available pretty much anything that exists in the world. Serra would be the Serra from Portugal would be the name that I would go for if we were trying to find this cheese in the United States. But it's basically like a cream, more of a creamy cheese that you can spread on. It's not a very hard cheese. You could spread on bread or on a toast. But it has a kind of this spicy note, almost floral, that
Right.
I like a lot.
Well, I mean, I don't want to keep talking to. I'm getting hungry at 6 o'clock here, but hey, and also I'm cognizant that it's now 2 a.m. in the morning for Oscar, and before he starts babbling, you know.
I'm still wondering if I now go out to the vineyard, start working earlier.
I thought you were going to say to the disco.
I go to bed.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, cool. Well, hey, look, it's been great. We're really thrilled that so many people joined us. I mean, and this should be, if my technology prowess comes to bear, it should be available on Facebook Live, so you can replay it. And we'll send out a quiz on those varieties. Anyway, hey, thanks very much, Oscar. Thanks, everyone. And cheers and happy Wednesday. See you in a month.
Thank you for being there and for supporting our dream.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Go.
Cheers and felicidades.
Obrigado.
Hey, obrigado. I can do that one. Okay. All right. Coolly. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Ciao.
See you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Cheers.
Obrigado.
I like to see all those glasses half empty now. That's good. All right. More wine coming.